Here we go. John Wick Chapter 2. Let's get it. So it starts off with him chasing this one dude on a motorcycle. He ends up beating him up, but the thing is he ends up getting his key card. Now what's his key card for? So he can go to this particular warehouse and get his car back. It turns out Viggo's brother has the daggone car. Now as I told you in part 1, he ended up killing Viggo and his son. Then he's telling one of his subordinates about, like, you know what I'm saying, he being the boogeyman and whatnot. Everybody knows about the story about him killing 3 people in a bar one time with a freaking pencil. Bottom line, he comes through and wreck niggas and ends up getting face to face with Viggo's brother. And he tells him he just wants peace, they get a drink, and he leaves out. Then he gets his car, which has pretty much been fucked up since the goddamn car chase scene. He basically ends up getting back to his house, getting back to his dog. And Aurelio shows up and he's just like, yeah, you think you can fix this car? He's like, nigga. The suspension busted, the engine's probably on the fucking ground at this point. He's like, you know what? I get it fixed. Whether it's like, you know, another 10 years or now, whatever like that. Bottom line is, I'm end up fixing it eventually. So he's chilling in the house. All of a sudden, he gets his knock at the door by a dude by the name of Santino. But the thing is, he ain't there for no social visit. He's there because he needs John Wick's help with something or whatever like that. But John's not trying to get back into the game. But the thing is, he's like, well, it kind of felt like you already been back into the game considering what you did in the first movie. Now, the thing is, John didn't even want to hear him out. But then the thing is, Santino basically tells him we did a blood marker, and considering that impossible task he did for Viggo, you know what I'm saying, to get out of the gang so he can get with Helen, well, it turns out he actually asked for Santino's help to do that. So John still refuses. Santino goes about his business, right? No, he ends up pulling out this missile launcher and ends up blowing up this nigga's whole house. How John and his dog survived, I have no idea. So afterwards, John's like, you know what? He gotta go to the Continental. So he goes back to that spot, right? And Winston's like, look, man, you did a marker with Santino, so basically you got to find out what he wants and to hash it out, do something. So basically, with no other alternative, he has to meet up with Santino. Now, here's the thing. Santino's trying to get a place at the 12 seats around the country or whatever like that. So what he needs him to do is kill his own sister. So yeah, John's looking at him like anybody else would be looking at him like, what the fuck? So his sister's name is Gianna, and she has one of the spots that she's being held in Rome. And considering what she's about and what she has around her, he feels like that's an impossible task in itself. But he knows what happens if you break a blood mark, so there you go. So then he goes to the Continental spot in Rome. He ends up talking to this guy by the name of Julius. Julius just asks him one question. He said, look, man, you got any business with the Pope? He's like, nah. So then he lets John go about his business and let him do what he do. John talks to this one dude about suits and tailors. Then he talks to another guy about multiple different types of guns. Then he talks to this other guy about maps and catacombs and, you know what I'm saying, stuff of that nature. And then he's getting everything popping for the night. So he's going through the catacombs and he's setting up all these different type of guns in certain spots of the catacombs because pretty much he feels like he knows what's coming. So Gianna's got her like bodyguards and stuff like that. One of her bodyguards happens to be Common. His name is Kashan in this movie, so cool. And the spot she's in is set up like a convention or whatever like that, but on the other side it's set up like a freaking rave party. She ends up talking to this one dude by the name of Mr. Inoki, and we find out she's pretty fucked up too. She had forced some of the people to sell off his own property by threatening to kill their children and shit. I'm like, nigga. So now they both own it together instead of Mr. Inoki owning that full property. I'm like, yo. So afterwards, she tells Mr. Inoki to join the party, whatever like that. Then she tells her bodyguards to go join the party too. As she goes into her room, all of a sudden, John is in the fucking room. Realizes she can't escape, she ends up getting in the tub, stripping down or whatever like that. And she's basically just going to kill her own self. She ends up slicing her wrist and just laying in the tub. And she ends up giving this heartfelt speech and she ends up dying right then and there. Done deal. But just to make sure, John made it more official and just shot her in the head afterwards. He was like, okay. So now as he's about to go around a certain other place or casually walk out, all of a sudden, Cassius, he sees him. He's like, what's good? What you doing here? You on business? Unfortunately. So Cassius put 2 and 2 together. He's like, time for beef. So now John's in a fight with a bunch of bodyguards. Cassius is going to go over and check on Gianna to see if she's dead for real, which we all know she is. He running through all these niggas, ends up making it to the catacombs. But when he gets down there, he ends up seeing Santino's bodyguard, who he didn't even know at the time was following him the entire trip. Or maybe he did know. So you're thinking to yourself like, all right, he did his job, you know what I mean? So what's the deal? Bottom line, she's there to make sure there's no loose ends. So basically, they're about to kill John. It's like, wow. And John was going through the catacombs, just meleeing niggas, knowing exactly where he put his guns at certain spots and meleeing more niggas. The catacomb scene by far has got to be the biggest kill count, yo. He had to murk at least a minimum of about 150 niggas. Where did she even get all these people from to be running around these catacombs? It's like crazy. Afterwards, he ends up getting out the catacombs, you know what I'm saying, but then ends up running into Cassius. The beef was back and forth, it was a crazy fight scene, and all of a sudden they end up crashing into the doors. Turns out they crashed right into the Continental with Julius standing there. I'm like, Wow. So like I said, when it comes to the Continental, shit don't play around over there. Like, nigga, you can't do nothing inside of there. They got rules. Bottom line, you break the rules, you out. So now both of them chilling, getting drinks. He realizes that John didn't have a choice but to do what he did. And Cash is like, yo, you realize I ain't got no choice but to do what I'm going to do to you because I was supposed to be protecting Gianna. So, it is what it is. So before he gets himself cleaned up, all of a sudden Santino's bodyguard's just chilling in there, just like, got my eye on you. I'm like, what? The thing is, she doesn't speak a lot. She doesn't speak at all because she just speaks in sign language. You know what I'm saying? So after Santino hears about the craziness or whatever like that, knowing that John is still alive, he ends up making a call. Now this call goes to a certain hotline, right? This call is basically to put out contracts on niggas. Guess how much money they putting on John's head? Fucking $7 million, yo. So it goes out to at least about 20, 30, maybe 40 different assassins and shit, right? So now John's back in New York at this point, you know what I'm saying? All these assassins trying to get to him on the subway or whatever like that, all this shit going through the trains. All of a sudden Cassius is over there too. They end up having this crazy fight in the subway train, and then John ends up done dealing Cassius. He's done deal. Knife at his chest and all that shit. He ends up getting this homeless man to hide him and whatnot. Then the homeless man ends up busting a couple more assassins, so apparently he ain't your average homeless man. Then he ends up taking him to this like homeless shelter or whatever like that so he can find his boss. Turns out his boss is Lawrence Fishburne, who's like, oh shit, the Matrix connection is back once again. So he talks about this story about how he sliced this man's neck or whatever like that, and he tells him like, look, just hold pressure on it, or do you want to die right here, whatever like that. So he says, oh yeah, I've never been snuck up on ever since. Bottom line is, John is actually there because he actually needs Lauren's help. He basically needs a gun, and he needs to know Santino's whereabouts. So Lawrence says, if I do this, you basically owe me a favor, huh? And I'm thinking to myself, well, all the guns he had before, why does he only want one gun? Now, Santino's at this gallery or whatever like that, and I'm thinking to myself, is it only one gun he can sneak in there, or like, what's the deal with that? I'm not really sure. But apparently one gun was all he needed, because as soon as he got in there, Santino knew what time it was. Bunch of niggas shooting, it's time for the beef. And the crazy thing about it is, when he would run out of bullets or whatever like that, he's always like trying to flip somebody over in his fights. He would take that person's gun and use their shit on other people. Like, he would constantly do this, like, all the time. So while he's murking all these niggas, he ends up chasing Santino through this, like, mirror type of maze thing. Kind of reminds you of the final scene from, like, Bruce Lee Enter the Dragon, with the whole mirror effects and whatnot. Then we see Santino's bodyguard and the crew come out of nowhere. They about to try to follow him, so you know what it is with that. And then it's all a bunch of mayhem. Santino somehow ends up getting away. He goes back to the Continental to meet up with Winston, because he feels safe there. John murked everybody and then figured out where the heck Santino is. He ends up going there, meeting Santino and Winston. And you know what time it is. Now, the thing is, Santino thought he was safe because, they got rules and whatnot. But the way John was feeling, and Winston's looking at him like, don't do it. Don't do it on company grounds. He pulled the thing out and banging off the side of the head. Santino done deal dead as shit. He ends up going back to the customer service guy who's been watching his dog the entire time. I'm like, his dog did not move when he told him to sit. Now, John knew the consequences of doing this on Continental grounds, but let me explain this to you. John ends up going back to his house with his dog, whatever bit of house he has left. And then the customer service guy comes to him and is like, hey, man, you got to take a ride. We got to talk to Winston. He ends up taking him to this familiar park. Yeah, one of the same parks that Perkins ended up getting done deal at. We like, oh, shit. But it's like a bunch of people walking around casually in this park or whatever like that. And he goes to meet up with Winston. And Winston goes, I'm sorry, man, but because you shot somebody on company grounds, you're excommunicated from the Continental business. And he tells him the reason you're not dead yet is because I was able to buy you some time, like an hour. Because after an hour, the old contract that had his head bounty for like $7 million is now being doubled. And the crazy thing is, when all these people was walking around, as soon as Winston looked up, everybody stopped and looked at him. We were like, oh shit, these are not regular people. These are all Continental niggas. Once he pointed, they all walked away and went about their business. We were like, what the fuck? Last scene you see is John running with his dog, just running for dear life, just non-stop running or whatever like that. So where's he gonna go? Who the heck knows? I'm gonna have to watch part 3 and find out. Yo, this shit is mayhem for real. John Wick Part 2 on Netflix. Check it out.